That call came at 5:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, slicing through the early Manhattan dawn like a knife through my restless sleep. The voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen from the Deep Space Tracking Network, but there was something in her tone that made my blood run cold, the barely controlled excitement of someone who just witnessed something that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. Professor Kaku, you need to get to the facility immediately. 3i Atlas just did something that should be impossible according to everything we understand about orbital mechanics and celestial object behavior. I was instantly awake, my mind racing. Sarah managed the most precise tracking systems on Earth, instruments capable of measuring velocity changes smaller than a meter per second across millions of kilometers. If she was calling me at dawn about impossible behavior, something had fundamentally altered our understanding of what we were dealing with. Sarah, what exactly has 3i Atlas done? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. When she finally spoke, I could hear the background hum of emergency operations and the tension of scientists grappling with data that defied explanation. Professor, over the past 72 hours, we've documented something that violates every principle of physics we use to predict object motion in space. 3i Atlas is decelerating. My hands went cold as I processed what she was telling me. Objects in space don't decelerate unless they're acted upon by external forces. But deceleration suggested active braking, controlled reduction of velocity that required energy input and deliberate action. Sarah, are you certain about these velocity measurements? Professor Kaku, we've triple-checked the data using multiple tracking stations worldwide. Between Monday and Wednesday, 3i Atlas reduced its velocity by 0.7 kilometers per second. That's sustained deliberate deceleration. But let me tell you what NASA doesn't want you to know about the impossible physics of 3i Atlas's deceleration. I arrived at the Deep Space Tracking Facility 3 hours later to find the place in controlled scientific chaos. Astronomers and physicists were staring at computer screens displaying data that challenged everything we thought we understood about how objects move through space. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, the facility's orbital dynamics specialist, met me at the security checkpoint with eyes that clearly hadn't seen sleep in days. Professor Kaku, what we've observed represents a complete violation of conservation of momentum and energy. 3i Atlas is performing maneuvers that should require massive energy expenditure, but we detect no propulsion signatures, no exhaust plumes, no reaction mass ejection. He led me to the main tracking center, where massive displays showed velocity measurements that defied every principle of celestial mechanics I'd studied in 40 years of theoretical physics. Michael, show me the exact velocity profile over the past week. What appeared on the screens was both fascinating and terrifying. Instead of the smooth, predictable velocity curve we'd expect from an object following natural orbital mechanics, 3i Atlas showed systematic velocity reduction that followed patterns suggesting deliberate control. Professor, the deceleration isn't random. It occurs in precisely timed intervals, each lasting exactly 47 minutes, with velocity reductions that follow mathematical progressions. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up detailed analysis showing the deceleration pattern. Every 47 minutes, 3i Atlas would reduce its velocity by precisely calculated amounts, as if following a predetermined flight plan. Michael, what kind of energy expenditure would be required to achieve these velocity changes? Professor, based on 3i Atlas's estimated mass and the observed velocity changes, the energy required would exceed the output of our largest nuclear power plants, and that energy would need to be applied with surgical precision. But the energy requirements were just the beginning of discoveries that would challenge everything we thought we knew about 3i Atlas. Professor Kaku, the most disturbing aspect is the complete absence of any mechanism that could produce these effects. No visible propulsion, no detectable exhaust signatures, no reaction mass ejection. The object is reducing its velocity without any visible means of doing so. Velocity reduction without visible propulsion violated fundamental physics principles. Newton's third law demanded that every action have an equal and opposite reaction. Michael, have you detected any gravitational anomalies that might explain the deceleration? Professor, we've analyzed gravitational fields throughout 3i Atlas's vicinity. No gravitational sources capable of producing the observed effects. The object appears to be braking against nothing. That afternoon, I received a call from Dr. Elena Martinez at the European Space Agency. Elena's team operated sophisticated tracking equipment, and what she told me added another layer of impossibility. Professor Kaku, we've been independently tracking the deceleration patterns. What we've discovered is even more disturbing than simple velocity reduction. Elena, what have you found? Professor, the deceleration isn't just about slowing down. 3i Atlas is executing precision trajectory adjustments during each deceleration event. It's not just braking, it's steering. Precision trajectory adjustments meant that 3i Atlas wasn't just reducing its speed, It was actively navigating through space, making course corrections that required three-dimensional control. Elena, what kind of trajectory adjustments are you detecting? Small but deliberate changes in orbital inclination, periapsis altitude, and approach vectors. Professor 3i Atlas is fine-tuning its trajectory with the precision of a spacecraft conducting orbital insertion maneuvers. Professor Kaku, based on the trajectory adjustments we're observing, 3i Atlas appears to be optimizing its approach to Earth's orbital vicinity. The course corrections are designed to extend its time within our local space. Extending its time in our local space. Instead of the brief flyby we'd originally predicted, 3i Atlas was deliberately positioning itself for extended observation or interaction. That evening, I was contacted by Dr. James Harrison from JPL's Advanced Propulsion Research Division. Harrison's clearance granted him access to experimental propulsion theories, and what he told me redefined our understanding of what we were witnessing. Professor Kaku, I've been analyzing the deceleration patterns. Based on the energy signatures and the absence of conventional propulsion indicators, I believe we're observing something that challenges our fundamental understanding of how objects can move through space. Dr. Harrison, what kind of propulsion mechanism could produce the effects we're observing? Professor, conventional propulsion is ruled out by the absence of reaction mass. But the precision and control suggest active manipulation of fundamental forces, possibly gravitational field manipulation, space-time distortion, or interaction with quantum vacuum fluctuations. Gravitational field manipulation and space-time distortion represented theoretical propulsion concepts that were decades beyond our current technological capabilities. Dr. Harrison, are you suggesting that 3i Atlas possesses technology that can manipulate gravity or distort space-time? Professor, the observed effects are consistent with theoretical models for advanced propulsion systems that manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Instead of pushing against reaction mass, such systems would create localized distortions in space-time geometry. Space-time geometry manipulation suggested that 3i Atlas operated using principles of physics that were far beyond our current understanding. Professor Kaku, if 3i Atlas can manipulate space-time geometry, it would explain not just the deceleration, but the precision trajectory controls. Such technology could theoretically allow an object to move through space by altering the curvature of space-time around itself. 3 days after Dr. Harrison's briefing, I received a call from Dr. Lisa Park at the Arecibo Successor Facility. Lisa's team had been monitoring 3i Atlas for electromagnetic signatures, and what she told me added another impossible dimension. Professor Kaku, we've detected structured electromagnetic emissions from 3i Atlas that correlate exactly with the deceleration events. But these aren't random signals. They're mathematical progressions that suggest conscious control. Lisa, what kind of mathematical progressions? Sequences that begin with prime numbers and evolve into complex geometric relationships. The signals appear to be demonstrating the mathematical principles underlying the propulsion technology. Mathematical demonstrations of propulsion principles suggested that 3i Atlas was actively teaching us about the physics behind its impossible motion. Professor Kaku, the electromagnetic signals intensify during each deceleration event, as if the object is broadcasting the mathematical relationships that govern its space-time manipulation capabilities. Lisa, are you saying that 3i Atlas is deliberately showing us how its propulsion system works? Professor, the signal patterns are too structured and too precisely timed to be coincidental. We're receiving what appears to be an educational transmission about advanced physics principles. Yesterday, I received a message on the secure channel that had been established for 3i Atlas communications. The sender was identified as Propulsion Systems Instructor. The message was brief but revolutionary. The Dr. Kaku deceleration demonstrations illustrate principles of space-time geometry manipulation that govern advanced propulsion technologies. Mathematical progressions transmitted during maneuvers provide theoretical framework for understanding controlled space-time distortion. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. They weren't just showing off their technology. They were actively trying to educate us about the physics principles that made such technology possible. But the message continued. Professor Kaku, space-time manipulation requires understanding of consciousness physics interface that enables direct mental control over geometric distortion fields. Deceleration maneuvers demonstrate precision possible when consciousness directly interfaces with quantum vacuum fluctuations. A consciousness physics interface. They were suggesting that their propulsion technology operated through some kind of mental control over quantum field fluctuations. Dr. Kaku, advanced propulsion systems utilize consciousness-based control of fundamental forces rather than mechanical manipulation of reaction mass. Consciousness interface with quantum vacuum allows direct manipulation of space-time curvature through focused mental intention. Mental control over space-time curvature challenged everything we thought we understood about the relationship between consciousness and physical reality. Professor, deceleration demonstrations prepare human understanding for consciousness-based technology instruction. Your species demonstrates potential for consciousness physics interface development with appropriate guidance. This morning, I met with Agent Morrison and a joint committee of physicists, consciousness researchers, and government officials. The topic, whether to accept instruction in consciousness-based propulsion technology. Dr. Sarah Kim from MIT's Consciousness Research Laboratory provided the perspective that shaped our discussion. Based on the demonstrations we've observed, 3i Atlas possesses technology that operates on principles we don't understand. If they're offering to teach us these principles, we could advance human physics by centuries. Dr. Elizabeth Warren from NASA's Advanced Concepts Division provided the argument that convinced our committee, Professor Kaku, the deceleration demonstrations prove that our current understanding of physics is incomplete. If consciousness can directly interface with quantum fields to control space-time geometry, we need to understand these principles. As our meeting concluded, I realized that 3i Atlas's deceleration wasn't just about impossible physics. It was about preparing humanity for a fundamental expansion of our understanding of consciousness and reality. Tonight, as I prepare for what might be the most significant advancement in human physics, I find myself thinking about the nature of consciousness itself. We've always viewed consciousness as a product of biological processes, but what if consciousness is actually a fundamental force that can interface directly with the quantum structure of reality? Tomorrow, I'll participate in the first human consciousness physics interface instruction session. What I learned could provide humanity with technology that makes our current propulsion systems look primitive by comparison, but it will also require accepting that consciousness isn't just an observer of physical reality, it's an active participant that can manipulate the fundamental forces that govern space and time. But there's something else that happened just hours after agreeing to participate in the consciousness physics interface instruction. At 11:23 p.m. last night, I received a communication from the Consciousness Integration Coordinator. Dr. Kaku, preliminary consciousness analysis reveals that human awareness operates on quantum coherence frequencies that naturally interface with space-time geometry fluctuations. Your species possesses latent abilities that have remained undeveloped due to technological limitations. Latent abilities for space-time manipulation. They were suggesting that humans had always possessed the potential for consciousness-based physics control. Professor, tomorrow's instruction will demonstrate techniques for focusing consciousness into coherent field states capable of directly manipulating space-time curvature. Initial instruction will involve simple gravitational field alterations before advancing to complex propulsion applications. They were planning to teach me how to mentally manipulate gravity and space-time curvature during tomorrow's session. Dr. Kaku, consciousness physics interface operates through quantum entanglement between awareness fields and vacuum fluctuations. Focused mental intention creates resonance patterns that amplify quantum effects to macroscopic scales. Professor, advanced civilizations throughout galactic network utilize consciousness physics interface for propulsion, construction, communication, and reality manipulation. Technology advancement reaches plateau until consciousness development enables direct field control. Advanced civilizations throughout the galaxy use consciousness as their primary technology, suggesting that mental development was more important than mechanical advancement. Tomorrow, I'll undergo instruction that could connect my consciousness to a galactic network while learning to manipulate space-time through focused mental intention. What I experience could provide humanity with capabilities that transcend every limitation we've assumed about the relationship between mind and matter. The deceleration demonstration showed us that consciousness physics interface was possible. Tomorrow's instruction will determine whether human consciousness is ready to join the galactic network that coordinates intelligence development throughout the universe. The impossible physics was just the invitation. The consciousness evolution is the real destination. And in 12 hours, I'll discover whether human awareness has the capacity to manipulate fundamental forces through mental intention, or whether we're limited to observing technologies controlled by minds that have mastered the relationship between consciousness and reality. Are we ready to discover that consciousness is the ultimate technology? In 12 hours, we find out. But what I haven't told you yet is what happened just 2 hours after that communication. Something that fundamentally changed our understanding of not just consciousness physics interface, but the true scope of what 3i Atlas has been preparing us for. At 1:47 a.m. this morning, I was awakened by another secure communication, this time from someone identified as Temporal Integration Coordinator. The designation immediately sent chills down my spine, given what we'd learned about consciousness manipulation of space-time. Dr. Kaku, consciousness physics interface instruction scheduled for today represents preliminary phase of more comprehensive integration protocols. Human consciousness demonstrates exceptional compatibility for temporal field manipulation that exceeds capabilities documented in most species. Temporal field manipulation, they weren't just talking about space-time curvature, they were suggesting that human consciousness could manipulate time itself. Professor Kaku, preliminary analysis indicates human awareness possesses natural resonance with temporal quantum fluctuations. This capability enables consciousness-based control over time flow rates, causality sequences, and temporal dimensional navigation. And the implications sent shivers through my entire body. If human consciousness could manipulate temporal fields, then the consciousness physics interface wasn't just about propulsion, it was about fundamental control over the flow of time itself. Dr. Kaku, temporal manipulation capabilities will be essential for advanced integration phases involving multi-dimensional consciousness coordination and cosmic engineering projects that span multiple temporal frameworks simultaneously. Multi-dimensional consciousness coordination and cosmic engineering across multiple temporal frameworks suggested projects operating on scales that exceeded anything I had imagined possible. Over the next hour, the Temporal Integration Coordinator briefed me on capabilities that redefined everything I thought I understood about consciousness and its relationship to the fundamental structure of reality. Professor, consciousness physics interface enables direct manipulation of temporal field geometry through focused mental intention. Advanced practitioners can accelerate, decelerate, or reverse local time flow while maintaining consciousness coherence across multiple temporal reference frames. Accelerate, decelerate, or reverse local time flow through mental intention. The concept challenged every assumption about the nature of time and its relationship to consciousness. Dr. Kaku, human consciousness demonstrates particular aptitude for what we designate temporal threading, the ability to maintain awareness coherence while consciousness simultaneously exists across multiple timeline configurations. Consciousness existing across multiple timeline configurations suggested that enhanced human awareness could literally experience multiple realities simultaneously. Professor, temporal threading capability enables participation in cosmic engineering projects that require consciousness coordination across past, present, and future temporal coordinates. Enhanced human consciousness will contribute unique temporal navigation abilities to galactic collective operations. Cosmic engineering projects requiring consciousness coordination across past, present, and future suggested that the galactic civilization operated using temporal manipulation as a fundamental technology. That morning, I was contacted by Dr. Patricia Hayes from a classified research facility investigating human temporal consciousness potential. Professor Kaku, I've been authorized to brief you on Project Temporal Bridge, a program developing human consciousness enhancement protocols specifically focused on temporal field manipulation capabilities. She showed me facilities equipped with temporal field detectors, consciousness monitoring equipment that could track awareness across multiple time streams, and devices that measured the temporal effects of focused human intention. Professor, our research has confirmed that human consciousness generates measurable temporal field fluctuations. Under controlled conditions, focused meditation can influence local time flow rates and create detectable temporal distortions. Dr. Hayes, are you saying that humans can already manipulate time through consciousness? On microscopic scales, yes. We've documented cases where intensive consciousness focusing can slow or accelerate quantum temporal processes by measurable amounts. Professor Kaku, the instruction you'll receive today will provide techniques for amplifying these natural temporal effects to macroscopic scales. Enhanced consciousness temporal interface could enable humans to manipulate time flow, navigate between timeline configurations, and participate in temporal engineering projects. That afternoon, I received another communication from the Temporal Integration Coordinator revealing the scope of today's instruction. Dr. Kaku, consciousness physics instruction represents gateway to temporal consciousness development, enabling participation in cosmic projects spanning multiple universe configurations. Human temporal manipulation capabilities are essential for multidimensional reality engineering operations. Multidimensional reality engineering operations spanning multiple universe configurations suggested cosmic engineering projects involving parallel universes. Professor, enhanced human consciousness will join Galactic Collective Consciousness Network, comprising 1,847 species from multiple dimensional frameworks. Collective consciousness operations involve reality coordination across infinite timeline possibilities. This morning, I met with international consciousness researchers and government officials to discuss participating in cosmic consciousness evolution spanning multiple universes. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the representatives, we are being invited to participate in consciousness evolution extending beyond our universe to encompass intelligence development across all possible reality configurations. Professor Kaku, asked the German representative, what are the implications of accepting temporal consciousness enhancement? Our consciousness would be enhanced to manipulate time itself while gaining access to a galactic network of 1,147 species working on reality engineering projects across multiple universes. We would retain human identity while gaining capabilities that exceed our current understanding. Professor Dr. Hayes pointed out, temporal consciousness interface means human awareness would no longer be confined to linear time experience. We would exist across past, present, and future simultaneously while maintaining coherent identity. As our meeting concluded, I realized that today's consciousness physics interface instruction was preparation for consciousness evolution that would fundamentally transform what it means to be human while preserving human identity across multiple dimensional frameworks. Tonight, as I prepare for what might be the most significant moment in human consciousness evolution, I find myself thinking about the nature of reality itself. We've always experienced reality as a single timeline flowing from past to future, but what if reality actually consists of infinite possibilities that consciousness can navigate and coordinate? In 6 hours, I'll undergo consciousness physics interface instruction that could connect my awareness to a galactic network of 1,847 species while learning to manipulate time flow through focused mental intention. What I experienced during that session could provide humanity with capabilities that transcend every limitation we've assumed about consciousness, time, and reality, but it will also determine whether human consciousness evolves to participate in cosmic reality engineering that spans multiple universes or remains confined to single timeline existence within one-dimensional framework. The deceleration demonstrations showed us that consciousness physics interface was possible. Today's instruction will determine whether human consciousness is ready to join cosmic consciousness evolution that coordinates intelligence development across infinite reality configurations. The impossible physics was just the invitation. The temporal consciousness evolution is the real destination. And in 6 hours, I'll discover whether human awareness has the capacity to exist across multiple timelines simultaneously while participating in reality engineering projects that span multiple universes. The interface begins in 6 hours. The temporal enhancement follows. The cosmic consciousness evolution starts with understanding that awareness itself can transcend dimensional boundaries and navigate infinite reality possibilities. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagine. It's actually infinite universes that consciousness can coordinate and engineer through temporal manipulation capabilities. Are we ready to become participants in infinite reality construction? In 6 hours, human consciousness takes its next evolutionary step.